Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, his upcoming film starring both Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, will tell the story of the mysterious disappearances and murders of members of the Native American Osage tribe that occurred in 1920s Oklahoma. The movie will be Scorsese's first Western, and his first feature film where he directs both DiCaprio and De Niro, with both whom he's worked with separately on over 10 films. There's so many reasons to be excited for this film, whether it's the cast, the director, the time period, the disturbing story, the factual basis for that story, among many other things. It also gave a chance for Scorsese film fans to put behind the complications of his previous film The Irishman behind, and go back to what we might consider normality in terms of filmmaking. The Irishman, as is well documented, had a lot of drama surrounding it leading up to the film's release, including Scorsese trying and failing to get the film financed in Hollywood for years, ultimately resulting in the film not receiving a wide cinema release, as the streaming platform Netflix ended up producing it. One of the primary actors in the film, Joe Pesci, dropped out just before filming was about to start, and it reportedly took 50 attempts from Scorsese and De Niro to get him back into the film. The movie also utilized controversial state-of-the-art CGI to de-age the main actors in the film, as by the time they got around to filming the movie, the actors were so much older than their characters, and this ballooned the film's budget to an incredible $160 million plus. It was bizarre for a Scorsese film starring Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci and Harvey Keitel to not be released in cinemas, but what's happened has happened, and now Scorsese fans could go back to his films being made and released in the normal fashion. However, reality has proven different. In fact, you could say that there's even more drama surrounding Killers of the Flower Moon than with The Irishman, and it hasn't even begun filming yet. The biggest hoopla is the astonishing fact that this period drama's budget is apparently close to $200 million, which is even more than The Irishman. We're all really scratching our heads at that one. Where exactly is this money going? I mean, The Irishman was expensive, but that was mainly due to the de-aging costs. What exactly is making Killers of the Flower Moon cost so much? Nobody really knows outside of the film's insiders. But the astronomical budget, we were told, meant that Paramount Pictures, who funnily enough dropped out of making The Irishman because it was so expensive, have now dropped out of this film as well. And deja vu time, people, because Killers of the Flower Moon is being released on yet another streaming platform, this time Apple TV+. Paramount will still distribute the film though, so it will get a proper cinema run, apparently, before making its way to Apple's streaming service as its permanent home. That's of course if this COVID pandemic doesn't change the way movies come out in cinemas. And speaking of the COVID pandemic, it of course delayed filming, and currently the film is scheduled to start shooting in February or March of next year, when the film was originally supposed to film a full year before that. But Paramount's dropping out of the film isn't just about the budget, apparently, because later developments, as I mentioned in a previous video, revealed that there were some major script changes made, forwarded by Leonardo DiCaprio and Martin Scorsese, which made the project a lot less appealing for Paramount. It involved a restructuring of the film's script, and DiCaprio, who is also a producer on the movie, playing a different character to who he was originally supposed to play. DiCaprio was set to play Tom White, the lead investigator in the Osage murders. Now he's playing Ernest Burkhart, someone who is part of the murder conspiracy, and his role has been dubbed one where his character is torn between loyalty to the murderers, such as his uncle, and his love for the family who he has married into, who are Osage. Personally, I think this is a great decision, as Tom White kinda sounds like it might be a bit of a generic character. It could be pretty boring to see DiCaprio to play him, who, if I'm honest, I'm not the biggest fan of anyway. Ernest Burkhart is a much more interesting character, much more complex than the classic hero Tom White, and this change also suggests instead of being a straight-up murder mystery, the film is going to be focusing on the bad guys and their psyche, much like the great Scorsese films. Recently, the film's screenwriter, Eric Roth, known for his works on The Insider, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and Forrest Gump, has shed some light on these developments. On an episode of the podcast Script Notes, Roth mentioned that the movie is likely to start filming in March, and said the following: "I spent 4 or 5 years on this book, Killers of the Flower Moon, which everybody should read. It's a wonderful book. My screenplay, I think, was accurate to the book. It's the story of Osage Indians, 1921, the poorest people in America who discover oil in this terrible land in Oklahoma where they've been driven to. Then every killer in America comes to kill 184 of them for their money, but this really heroic guy comes in to help. That's supposed to start filming in March once the COVID clears out, and it's Martin Scorsese. There'll be continuing rewrites with that. Leonardo wanted some things changed that we argued about. He won half of the arguments, I won half of them, so that's happening." So it looks as though the final script will only be partly Roth's original vision, which, to be honest, of course, is pretty normal in Hollywood. Scripts are being chopped and changed all the time, but it was precisely the demands that DiCaprio made that turned off Paramount from the project, as the Hollywood Reporter mentioned. In the revised version, DiCaprio would play villain Robert De Niro's nephew, torn between love and the evil machinations of his uncle. A source with knowledge of the situation says Paramount felt that turned the film into a moody and less commercial character study. Once Scorsese and DiCaprio revised Killers of the Flower Moon, Paramount empowered DiCaprio's longtime manager, Rick Yorn, to shop the project. No doubt the studio hoped no one would tackle it, which might persuade Scorsese to come back to the original idea and the hoped-for budget. Now, from all this info we have, I'm actually a lot more excited for the film, especially with Paramount declaring the new script is a moody and less commercial character study. With their bluff of allowing Scorsese to shop around the project to other studios failing, as Apple decided to take it on and keep the huge budget. In my opinion, from the little we know of what's been happening, artistic integrity has won over studio commercial interest, a rare victory in modern-day Hollywood that is, once again, thanks to the new giants of the movie world, the streaming platforms. It's also worth noting that if you actually listen to the podcast itself, where the Killers of the Flower Moon talk came up as part of a much wider discussion on screenwriting, Eric Roth doesn't come off as bitter or angry, but seems to acknowledge that this is part of the natural process of filmmaking. For more news and updates on Killers of the Flower Moon, consider subscribing to the channel, and thanks for watching.